Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you've crossed paths with someone today? At the market, on the street, at the gym, at that coffee shop you go to every week. Now answer me this. What if one of those people was watching you? Not just a glance, but really watching you. Studying your schedule, your habits, your movements. Mentally noting every detail of your routine. Would you notice? The truth is, most of us wouldn't notice. And that's exactly what a predator counts on. She didn't notice either. When he first appeared at that coffee shop, everything seemed normal, natural even. A nice, polite, somewhat shy guy. He asked for a book suggestion. He smiled in a disarming way. She answered, he thanked her, and that was it. A common interaction, the kind you forget in 5 minutes. But he didn't forget. He came back the next day, and the next, and the next. Always at the same time as her, always with that gentle, attentive manner. Always saying the right things, at the right time, in the right place. But none of that was a coincidence. What she didn't know, and perhaps never imagined until the end, was that that first meeting was planned. He had seen her before, weeks before, in another place, and at that moment, right there, he decided, it's going to be her. The choice was made. The victim was selected. And from then on, his every move was calculated. Every word was measured. Every gesture was part of a larger plan. A plan she never managed to see until she was completely trapped. And that's what's most frightening. Because when we think about violent crimes, about aggressors, about predators, we imagine the moment of the attack, the physical violence, the despair. But the truth is that the crime begins much earlier. Weeks, months, sometimes even years before the first act of aggression. It begins with silent observation, with the first planned contact, with the invisible manipulation that surrounds you without you realizing it. Today I'm going to show you something that most true crime channels avoid talking about. We're not just going to focus on the crime itself, the blood, the shock. We're going to dismantle the entire process of selecting and manipulating a victim. We're going to enter the mind of the perpetrator and dissect each phase, each strategy, each calculated move he uses to choose you, win you over, and control you. How does he decide who will be the target? Why are some people chosen and others not? How does he approach without raising any red flags? And most importantly, why does the victim never see the danger until it's too late? If you're watching this now, please like it, because this content needs to reach more people. Knowledge about psychological manipulation can literally save lives. And if you know someone who's in a strange relationship, who seems too controlling, too intense, too fast, comment below the video, because the signs are always there. We just need to learn to recognize them. Let's get inside the predator's head. And I'm warning you, it's disturbing. It will be uncomfortable, but it's absolutely necessary, because the greatest power an aggressor has isn't physical strength, it's invisibility. It's being able to get close without being noticed, manipulate without being questioned, control without leaving visible marks. And when you understand how this game works, when you know its rules, it loses its power. So, take a deep breath, because now we're going to start from the beginning, from the phase that almost no one sees, but that determines everything. Before we dive into this, do me a favor. If this type of content interests you, if you truly want to understand how a criminal's mind works, hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications. Because every week I bring you cases and analyses that will make you see the world in a different way. And leave a comment below telling me, have you ever felt like you were being watched by someone? Have you ever had that strange feeling that something wasn't right, but you couldn't explain what? Tell us about it. These stories matter, and I read all the comments. Now let's go. The first phase of a predator's process is the most silent, and precisely for that reason, the most dangerous. It's the moment when it studies you without you knowing it exists. It's the observation phase, the prey recognition phase, and it all begins with a question in its head. Who do I choose? Let me tell you a true story that sums up everything we're going to discuss here. Her name was Sarah, 28 years old, a primary school teacher living alone in a small town in the countryside. Simple life, quiet routine. She liked to read, frequented the same coffee shop twice a week, always at the same time. It was her moment, you know. that breather in the middle of the rush. And it was there that she met Marcus. He seemed perfect on paper, polite, somewhat shy, the kind who speaks softly and smiles slightly. One day, he approached her table and asked for a book suggestion. Sarah, who was passionate about literature, was thrilled. They talked about poetry, about favorite authors. The conversation flowed naturally. He thanked her and left. The next day, he returned, and the day after that too. Always kind, always respectful, always with that air of someone who doesn't want to bother anyone. Within 3 weeks, they were dating. Within 2 months, he practically lived at her house. 6 months later, Sarah was dead. When the police raided Marcus's apartment, what they found chilled the blood of any investigator. On his computer, there was a folder with Sarah's name on it. Inside that folder, more than 200 photos. Photos of her at the supermarket choosing fruit. Photos of her leaving the gym. Photos of her walking down the street, coming home from work, entering her house. Images taken from afar, zoomed in, without her ever knowing she was being photographed. There were even notes, schedules, routines, the names of her friends, the places she frequented, when she was alone. Everything documented, organized, archived like a research project. And the coffee shop, that first casual, even romantic encounter, it wasn't casual. Marcus had seen Sarah weeks before, at a lecture on early childhood education at the local university. He wasn't there for academic interest. He was hunting. And when he saw Sarah, sitting in the second row, attentively taking notes, he decided right then and there, she's going to be the one. He spent the next 3 weeks tracking her movements. He found out where she lived, where she worked, what her favorite places were, and when he realized she religiously went to that coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 in the afternoon, he hatched a plan. He arrived before her, chose a nearby table, waited for the right moment, and when she sat down, he made it seem like it was all spontaneous, natural, a chance encounter. But it wasn't destiny. It was social engineering, pure manipulation. Marcus wasn't crazy. He wasn't an uncontrolled psychopath acting on impulse. He was methodical, calculating, cold, and that's the pattern most people don't understand. We grow up watching movies and series where the killer is an unbalanced maniac who attacks anyone in the middle of the night. But the reality is much more frightening. The reality is that predators like Marcus plan, they observe, they study, they rehearse, and when they finally act, they've already spent months building the perfect trap. Sarah never stood a chance because she didn't know she was being hunted, and now I'm going to show you exactly how this type of predator operates phase by phase, step by step, starting from the moment it decides who its victim will be. The first thing you need to understand is that every attack begins with a choice, and that choice is never random. Predators don't wake up one day and decide to attack the first person they see. It doesn't work that way. They observe, they analyze, they select, and they do it in such a discreet, natural way that no one realizes they are being evaluated. Think about it. How many times a week do you go to the supermarket? Always the same place? Always around the same time? And the gym? The park where you walk? That bakery you love? We create routines because it brings comfort and predictability. But for a predator, routine is opportunity. It frequents the same places you do. Parks, gyms, supermarkets, coffee shops, even churches. It goes there and simply observes. Not in an obvious way, it doesn't stare at anyone. It's subtle. It glances. It makes mental notes. It's looking for something specific. What exactly? Vulnerability. And vulnerability has clear signs for those who know what to look for. He seeks women who are alone. No wedding ring, no constant companionship. Someone who arrives alone, leaves alone, isn't always glued to their cell phone talking to someone. He looks for predictable routines. That person who is always in the same place on the same day of the week at the same time. Because that means he can plan, he can organize, he can be there when she is. He also observes body language, submissive posture, head down, avoiding eye contact. This doesn't mean weakness of character. It just means the person isn't in a constant state of alert. And for him, that's perfect. But there's something else he looks for, and this is perhaps the most important. Social isolation. He pays attention to whether the person is always accompanied by friends or is generally alone, whether she talks on the phone frequently or spends long periods in silence. Few social connections mean that if she disappears, it will take longer for someone to notice. It means she has fewer people to turn to in case of danger, fewer people questioning strange behavior. Marcus did exactly that with Sarah. He observed her for 3 whole weeks before exchanging a single word with her. 3 weeks sitting at nearby tables pretending to read a book, drinking coffee, looking out the window, but all the while, taking notes. He knew she went to the coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday, always at 3 in the afternoon. He knew she always sat in the corner with her back to the wall. He knew she didn't wear a wedding ring. He knew she was rarely accompanied. He even noticed that she avoided looking directly at the other customers, that she was immersed in her books, in her own world. And here's the detail that many people don't understand. He wasn't looking for the prettiest woman in the coffee shop. He wasn't choosing based on physical attraction or romantic desire. He was looking for the most accessible one, the one with the most predictable routine, the one who would be easiest to isolate, the one who, if she disappeared, would take longer for anyone to notice. Because predators don't choose based on desire, they choose based on opportunity, on ease of execution, on the lowest risk of being caught. Sarah had all the markers he was looking for, and when he was absolutely certain that she was the ideal target, that's when he moved on to the next phase. Now that the target has been chosen, comes the most delicate part of the whole process, approaching without scaring them. Because a predator knows that if they approach aggressively, dominatingly, or invasively, the person will immediately retreat. Self-preservation instincts will trigger a red alert in their mind. So they need to wear a mask. They need to transform themselves into exactly the kind of person you would like to meet. Someone kind, polite, harmless, someone who poses no threat. Marcus knew this very well. When he finally decided to make first contact with Sarah, he didn't come on strong, he wasn't seductive, he wasn't overly confident. He was shy, almost insecure. He approached her table with that air of someone who doesn't want to bother her and asked for a book suggestion. Said he was trying to get back into reading but didn't know where to start. He even stuttered a little as if he were nervous. And do you know why? Because he created an image of vulnerability, and vulnerability generates trust. When someone shows themselves to be fragile in front of us, our instinct is to lower our guard. We think, this person isn't a threat, they need help. This even has a name in psychology, emotional disarmament. The predator shows you that he's harmless, that he's one of the good guys, that you can trust him, and you relax. Sarah relaxed. She was even happy to help. They talked about literature, about favorite authors. The conversation was light, pleasant. He thanked her and left. Simple as that. But it was enough to plant the first seed. That's when the signs of this phase begin to appear. And these are signs that many people ignore because they seem romantic. They seem like luck. They seem like destiny. First, too many coincidences. Marcus returned to the coffee shop the next day, and the next, and the next, always at the same time as Sarah. By chance? No. But for her, it seemed like the universe was conspiring in their favor. He was always there when she arrived, always with that shy smile, always polite. Second sign, excessive attention. He remembered every detail she mentioned. If she commented that she liked a specific author, in the next conversation he had already read something by that author. If she said she preferred tea to coffee, he would appear drinking tea too. He made Sarah feel seen, special, as if finally someone was really paying attention to what she was saying. And this works because most people go through life feeling invisible. We want to be understood. We want to be valued. So when someone shows genuine interest in who we are, we become attached quickly. But Marcus's interest wasn't genuine. It was strategic. He was gathering information. Every detail Sarah shared was another piece of the puzzle he was putting together. Marcus was never intrusive at this stage. He never asked for her phone number right away. He never suggested going out alone right away. He was patient. He let Sarah dictate the pace, or at least that's what she thought. In reality, he was just waiting for the right moment, waiting until she felt so comfortable in his presence that she herself would take the next step. And that's exactly what happened. After 2 weeks of casual conversations at the coffee shop, it was Sarah who invited him to sit at her table. It was she who suggested exchanging numbers. It was she who felt she was in control. But he wasn't, because he had already achieved the goal of this phase, to gain her trust. And now with the door open, he could begin to build something much deeper and much more dangerous. With the trust he had gained, Marcus needed to take the next step, to establish himself in Sarah's life in a way that seemed natural, almost inevitable. And to do this, he used a technique that is both ingenious and terrifying. It's called mirroring. It's when someone copies your tastes, your opinions, your emotions, your experiences, all to create an illusion of deep connection, to make you believe that you have finally found someone who truly understands you. Sarah loved poetry. She spent her childhood reading Cecilia Meirelles, Carlos Drummond de Andrade, and Fernando Pessoa. When she mentioned this to Marcus, he said he also loved poetry, that he had even been rereading some classics recently. She was delighted. Finally, someone who shared this passion. Sarah had been a vegetarian for 5 years, for ethical and health reasons. Marcus, who until weeks before ate meat every day, said he was seriously considering becoming a vegetarian as well, that he was reading about it, that it made perfect sense. Sarah was moved. He truly cared about the same causes she did, and it went further. Sarah mentioned in a more intimate conversation that she had a complicated relationship with her father, that her childhood had been difficult. Marcus, looking deeply into her eyes, said that he too had had a complicated childhood, that he perfectly understood what she felt, that it was as if they were looking in each other's mirror. And Sarah felt that. She felt that she had found someone who truly saw her, who understood her pain, her fears, her dreams. But the truth is that Marcus wasn't real. He was a chameleon. He molded himself to what Sarah needed to see. Every piece of information she gave him, he absorbed and returned as if it were part of his essence. He didn't have his own tastes in this dynamic. He had her tastes. He didn't have his own opinions. He had her opinions. It was a perfect projection, a false reflection created with surgical precision. And this works because our brains are programmed to seek similarities. We feel safe around those who are similar to us. We trust more quickly those who share our beliefs, our values, our pains. It's an ancestral survival mechanism. Those in our group are less likely to harm us, but predators know this mechanism, and they exploit it masterfully. They study you deeply to transform themselves into your ideal partner. They don't have their own personality in this game. They have your personality reflected back to you. Sarah began to feel like she had known Marcus for years, that she had finally found her soulmate, that person everyone searches for their whole life. And when you start thinking like that, when you feel that instant and deep connection with someone you've just met, that's when you're most in danger, because you're seeing what you want to see. You're projecting your expectations onto a blank canvas that molds itself perfectly to receive those projections. Marcus had become indispensable, and now, with Sarah completely emotionally involved, he could begin to truly tighten the noose around her. Now comes the most sinister part of the whole process. With trust established and an emotional connection created, Marcus needed to do something fundamental. Distance Sarah from everyone who could protect her, from all the people who could perceive that something was wrong. And he didn't do it with violence. Not at first. He did it with subtle, almost imperceptible manipulation. It started with small comments, thrown into the middle of conversations. Sarah would mention she was going out with her friends on the weekend, and Marcus would say something like, "Do your friends really understand you? Because I feel like they don't value you as they should." Or, "Funny how they only call you when they need something, right?" Sarah would laugh, thinking he was being protective, but those words stayed in her head, planting doubts, creating noise. When Sarah talked about her family, Marcus would sigh and say, "Your mother demands too much of you, doesn't she? You do everything right and it's never enough for her. You deserve people who truly value you, who see how amazing you are." And Sarah, who had always had a complicated relationship with her mother, felt that Marcus understood her in a way that no one else did. He validated her frustrations, but in doing so, he was also creating distance. He was putting a chasm between Sarah and the people who loved her. Gradually, Marcus began asking for more time. He said he only felt complete when he was with her, that the days without seeing her were empty. It seemed romantic. It seemed like intense love. But in practice, it meant that Sarah began canceling plans with friends. She began refusing family invitations, because Marcus felt sad when she went out without him, because he had that abandoned look on his face. because he said she was the only person who truly mattered to him. When Sarah insisted on going out alone, Marcus didn't directly forbid it. He just stayed quiet, somewhat distant, and then he would text her all night, saying he missed her, that he was alone, that he was thinking about her. Sarah began to feel guilty for having fun while he was at home, waiting. She started going out less because it was easier to stay with him than to deal with that guilt. Marcus also created indirect conflicts. When Sarah returned from lunch with her friends, he would ask what they had talked about, and when Sarah mentioned something, he always found a way to twist it. "Oh, so she thinks you should do this? But does she know you as well as I do? Does she know what's best for you?" He pitted Sarah against her own friends, making it seem like they didn't truly support her. 6 months into their relationship, Sarah barely spoke to anyone besides Marcus. Her friends had given up calling because she always had an excuse. Her family had stopped trying because she was always busy. She didn't understand it, but she had become completely isolated. Marcus was the absolute center of her life. He was the only voice she listened to, the only opinion that mattered, and that was exactly what he wanted. Because the goal of this phase is simple: to cut all the wires connecting the victim to the outside world, to leave them alone. Because an isolated person is a controllable person. It's someone who has no one to run to when things get bad. It's someone who is emotionally dependent on a single source. And when you are that single source, you have all the power. And with that power in his hands, Marcus could begin to tighten his grip even more. With Sarah isolated and emotionally dependent, Marcus entered an even more dangerous phase. He needed to test how far he could go. He needed to know what limits she would accept crossing. Because predators don't attack in the dark. They map the terrain first. They make small incursions and observe the victim's reaction. And if the victim accepts, they know they can advance further. Marcus started showing up at Sarah's house unannounced. At first, she even thought it was sweet. He brought flowers, said he missed her. But then he started showing up at strange hours, in the middle of the night, or when she had just arrived home from work and just wanted to shower and relax. He said he just wanted to see her, that he couldn't stay away. And Sarah, even though she was uncomfortable, let him in, because it was easier than creating a conflict. One day Marcus took the key to her apartment. He said he would make a copy in case she forgot her key somewhere and needed help. It seemed like a practical, even thoughtful gesture. But what he really wanted was unrestricted access, to be able to enter whenever he wanted. And Sarah let him, because in her mind that was trust. That was commitment. That's what couples did. Then Marcus started snooping through her phone. While Sarah was in the shower, he unlocked her phone and checked her messages. He read conversations with friends. He looked at her social media. When Sarah noticed and questioned him, he said he was just looking for a photo she had taken of them, that it wasn't anything serious, that couples don't have secrets. And Sarah, despite her discomfort, accepted the explanation. Each time Sarah accepted one of these intrusions, Marcus knew he could go further. This has a name in the psychology of abuse: normalization. He gradually breaks down your barriers in small, almost imperceptible doses. You accept the first intrusion because it's not that serious. You accept the second because he's worried. You accept the third because you think that's how relationships work. You accept the fourth because it's become routine. And when you realize it, there are no more barriers, no more privacy, no more autonomy. All of that has been gradually eroded, and you didn't even see it happening. But it's not love, it's control. And the difference between the two is simple. Love respects boundaries, control destroys them. And there's something even worse. When Sarah finally reacted, when she said she felt suffocated and needed space, Marcus didn't accept it. He cried. He said he was just loving her too much, that she was exaggerating, that he would never do anything to hurt her. He completely reversed the situation. He made Sarah feel guilty for bringing up the subject. He made her doubt her own perception. And that also has a name: gaslighting. It's when someone manipulates you to the point of making you question your own sanity, your own version of the facts. Sarah tried to end the relationship once. She said she needed time. Marcus became desperate. He cried, uncontrollably. He said he couldn't live without her, that if she left, he didn't know what he would be capable of doing. He threatened to hurt himself. He threatened to kill himself. And Sarah, terrified by the idea of being responsible for something like that, went back. Because at that point, Marcus already had total control over her emotions. He knew exactly which strings to pull to make her dance to his tune. And with all that control established, he was ready to close the trap for good. With Sarah completely isolated, emotionally dependent, and doubting her own perceptions, Marcus had everything he needed. The trap was set. Now all he had to do was close it, and he did it in the most calculated way possible. Marcus suggested they spend a weekend in a cabin in the countryside. He said they needed to reconnect, that the routine was wearing down their relationship, that away from everything, just the two of them, they could go back to how they were in the beginning. It seemed romantic. It seemed like a genuine attempt to save what they had. Sarah hesitated. Something inside her screamed that it wasn't a good idea, but she couldn't identify what it was. It was just a vague feeling of unease, and when she mentioned it, Marcus was hurt. He said she didn't trust him, that he was trying to fix things and she was sabotaging him. And Sarah, conditioned not to trust her own instincts, gave in. She went. The cabin was 3 hours away from the city, completely isolated. No close neighbors, no cell phone signal. Marcus said that was precisely why he chose the place, so they could disconnect from the world and reconnect with each other. But the truth is, he chose that place because there, no one could hear, no one could help. No one would know what was happening until it was too late. 3 days later, a caretaker who maintained properties in the area found Sarah's body. Marcus had fled, but he was captured less than 24 hours later, and when the police interrogated him, he confessed everything, without remorse, without hesitation. He said he had planned it from day one, that he saw Sarah at that lecture and decided she was the one, that he observed her for weeks before approaching her, that every conversation, every gesture, every word was calculated. He said he chose Sarah because she was easy, because she was alone, because she had a predictable routine, because no one would notice her absence quickly enough. And he was right. When Sarah didn't show up for work on Monday, the director called a few times and then assumed she was sick. Her friends, who were already distant, didn't find it strange that they hadn't heard from her. Her family waited a few days before truly worrying. Marcus had time, and he used that time to disappear. But what shocked investigators the most was his coldness. He showed no remorse, no emotion. He spoke of Sarah as if she were an object, a project, an achievement. And when asked why he did it, he simply said that he wanted to, that he could, that he was capable. This is what most people don't understand about crimes like this. The attack isn't the beginning of the story. It's the end. It's the final scene of a play that's been rehearsed for months. Everything that came before, all that building of trust, all that mirroring, all that isolation, all that control, was preparation. It was the predator setting the perfect trap. And when the trap closes, the victim is already so trapped, so confused, so broken, that they can't even perceive the danger until it's literally too late. Sarah died without fully understanding what had happened, without being able to connect all the dots, without realizing that from the first day at the coffee shop, she was being hunted. And that's devastating. But understanding this process, unraveling these phases, can save other Sarahs. Because when you know how the game works, it becomes much harder to play. You must be wondering at this moment, how can someone do this? How can a person coldly plan the death of another for months, live with them, pretend to love them, and then act without hesitation? The answer is harsh, but you need to hear it. Predators don't feel like you. They have no empathy. They don't feel guilt. They don't care about the suffering of others. And this isn't an opinion based on guesswork or a horror movie. It's science. It's neuroscience. There are dozens of studies on the brains of psychopaths, and they all point to the same thing. These people have reduced activity in specific areas of the brain, especially in the amygdala and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. These are the regions responsible for processing empathy, fear, and remorse. When you see someone crying, your brain automatically simulates that emotion. You feel discomfort, you want to help. It's an automatic, involuntary response. But in the brain of a psychopath, this response simply doesn't happen. They look at someone in distress and feel nothing. Literally nothing. It's as if they were looking at a chair or a stone. There is no emotional connection. For Marcus, Sarah wasn't a person with dreams, fears, family, or a future. She was an object, a puzzle he wanted to assemble, a challenge he wanted to overcome. an achievement he wanted to add to his collection. And when he achieved his goal, when he finally had complete control over her, he discarded her, just like that. No internal drama, no moral conflict, no voice in our heads saying, "This is wrong, stop." That voice doesn't exist in his mind. He planned it because he liked the control. He liked feeling smarter than everyone else, that he could manipulate without being noticed, that he could predict the victim's every move. It gave him pleasure. Not necessarily sexual pleasure, but psychological pleasure. The feeling of absolute power over another life. He manipulated because he could, because he had the tools, the patience, the necessary coldness, and he killed because he wanted to, because at that moment it made sense within his distorted logic. And after the crime, no remorse, no guilt, no sleepless nights thinking about what he did, only frustration at having been caught, at having failed in the perfect execution of the plan. And this is the crucial point that everyone needs to understand. You can't appeal to the conscience of someone who doesn't have one. You can't fix a predator with love. You can't cure a psychopath with patience. You can't make him see his mistake with understanding. Because the problem isn't that he doesn't understand he's hurting you. It's that he doesn't care, and he never will. No matter how much you give, how hard you try, how much you believe there's something good deep down, there isn't. There never was. Therefore, the only real defense against a predator is recognizing the signs from the beginning. It's trusting your instincts when something seems wrong, even if you can't explain what it is. It's understanding that healthy relationships don't happen in 3 weeks, that normal people don't need to isolate you to love you, that true love respects boundaries, it doesn't destroy them little by little. And when you identify these patterns, you need to leave. Immediately, without giving explanations, without trying to fix things, without believing in promises of change, because change doesn't come. It never comes. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. So now comes the question that really matters. How do you avoid becoming the next Sarah? How do you protect yourself from someone who is trained in manipulation, who knows exactly which buttons to push, who manages to seem perfect until it's too late? The answer lies in paying attention to the signs. They are always there, always. You just need to know what to look for, and above all, you need to trust yourself when you see them. First sign, excessive coincidences. If a guy shows up where you are with a frequency that seems strange, it's not luck. It's not the universe conspiring in your favor. He's tracking you. He's discovered your routine and is fitting into it. If you met at a coffee shop and suddenly he also goes to the same gym as you, also shops at the same market, also shows up at the same park where you walk, pay attention. One coincidence is normal. 3 or 4 is already a pattern, and patterns don't lie. Second sign, intense attention too quickly. If someone treats you like the love of their life after 2 or 3 weeks of dating, that's not overwhelming passion. It's a giant red flag. Healthy relationships develop gradually. True intimacy takes time to build. When someone showers you with intense love, profound declarations, and future plans right from the start, it's because they're trying to trap you emotionally before you have time to see who they really are. It's like casting a net. Fast, intense, suffocating. Third sign, subtle isolation. He'll never come to you and say, "I want to distance you from your friends." That would be too obvious. He'll make comments. He'll plant seeds of doubt. He'll create situations where you feel guilty for spending time away from him. He'll make you choose between him and other people, always putting you in a position where choosing others seems selfish. And little by little, without realizing it, you'll drift away. If you notice that you're frequently canceling plans, that your friendships are cooling off, that your family complains that you've disappeared, stop and analyze who is causing this distance. Fourth sign, boundary violation. He takes your phone without asking. He shows up at your house unannounced. He wants to know all your passwords. And when you complain, he downplays it. He says you're exaggerating, that real couples don't have secrets, that he's just worried. But it's not worry. It's invasion of privacy. It's disrespect. And every boundary you let him cross is a test he passed. A green light to go further next time. Fifth sign, emotional instability. He alternates between being the perfect man and being terrifying. One day he's attentive, romantic, and affectionate. The next, he's cold, distant, sometimes even verbally aggressive. You never know which version of him will appear, and this keeps you in a constant state of alert, always trying to please him, always walking on eggshells. This isn't emotional complexity, it's manipulation. It's a technique to make you insecure and dependent on his approval. If you recognize these signs in your life or in the life of someone close to you, don't ignore them. Don't make excuses. Don't try to justify it with, but that's how they were raised, or they're going through a difficult time. Get out. And if it's a friend who's in that situation, don't judge. Don't say, "I told you so." Believe her. Offer support without pressure, because getting out of a predator is one of the hardest things there is. They trap you emotionally in a way that seems impossible to break free from, but it is possible. It's always possible. This video wasn't made to scare you. It was made to arm you, because knowledge is power, and predators can only function in the shadows, in ignorance, in silence. When you understand their game, when you know the rules, when you know their moves before they make them, they completely lose their power, and that can save your life. If you've made it this far, I know this content resonated with you, and if it did, I'd like to ask you something. Subscribe to the channel, because every week I bring you cases and analyses like this, dissecting the minds of criminals, showing what happens behind the headlines. It's not sensationalism. It's information that can make a real difference in your life or the life of someone you love. And leave a comment below saying, "I made it to the end. I read them all." I like knowing who's on the other side of the screen, who's really interested in understanding how these minds work. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, who's in a strange relationship, or who's simply interested in criminal psychology, send them the link. Knowledge like this needs to circulate. Leave a like as well, because that helps the video reach more people. And the more people who can recognize these patterns, the fewer victims there will be out there. Now there's a video over here that complements this topic. We're going to delve into another type of predator with different techniques and patterns. Click and continue reading there. Thanks for reading this far. Until the next case.